Welcome back to the channel and another video on the 944 Porsche. Now the first video has done really well. I really do appreciate everybody that stopped by to watch the video, and to all the new subscribers, a really warm welcome. Now every time I make one of these videos I think I've got to keep the momentum going, especially when the video does quite well, but it just never seems to happen. But I am hoping to actually make more of an effort. So when I took this car off the trailer, it was very slow turning over. Now partly I thought it was down to the low battery, which it kind of was, but that's been fully charged, and every time I've tried to start it since, it's been really slow turning over, or it just won't turn over at all. And I think it's partially to do with the state of the starter motor. So the first thing I need to do is get this project more mobile. So the starter motor, I just need it starting properly. The other problem is the brakes. So the brakes are mostly locked on. I have freed them off a bit. I've driven it in and out a few times, but they do lock on. So I need to clean the front brakes, or clean all the brakes rather, and see what needs doing. Now if we need to rebuild the caliper, I will, but if I don't, I'm not going to bother at the moment, because I just want to see how much I can get this car, or how much it's going to cost rather, to get this car on the road. So the first job I need to do is get it up in the air, get the starter motor off and clean it up and see if it makes it any difference. Then we're going to get all the wheels off and look at the brakes, just free them all up, clean them up and see what we need to do. And if we need to rebuild the caliper, obviously we need to. If we don't, then I'm just going to clean everything up and put it back together. Now hopefully that will be okay for the MOT. Later on down the road, obviously we can make it look pretty, etc. But at the moment it's more about functioning. Now the bodywork and everything else, once I've got it mobile, I'll be able to pull it in and out and do a lot more work on it, a lot easier. But at the moment it's tied up because it's on the ramp and it's not that easy to move around. So we'll get it up in the air and make a start. So the first thing I need to do is just remove the electric cable. Now I've already disconnected it in the boot. On the UK cars it is in the boot. I've seen a lot of the American ones with it in the scuttle panel. So once I've disconnected that, just need to remove this bolt here, or the nut rather, which actually is loose as well. So that's just a 13mm nut and washer. It's got two cables on it. And then the little one also, that looks like an 8mm. And that's not a very good start because that is already loose. So that might be the issue with the starter motor, to be honest. Dogs down the road are going bananas. So I'll remove this off here and then hopefully we can get it back in one piece. If not, we may have to replace the starter motor anyway, but we'll see. A lot of cars have got a spade connector on here instead of a bolt-on connector. I was quite surprised that this is a bolt-on one, to be honest. And then it's got two mounting bolts, one here and one the other side behind you. Can't really see. So these are 19mm heads on them. There's one. Okay, it's the second bolt. It's a lot shorter than the other one because it's not going through the actual gearbox part. Okay, that's the starter motor out. And these wires look a little bit corroded as well, so we give all those a good clean up, and then hopefully we're good to go. So against my better judgment, I started filming the starter motor repair in the middle of Storm Claudia, and the audio is absolutely terrible. All you can hear is the rain and the wind bashing against the building. So for the first part of the video, I'm just going to do a voiceover and show you what I did. So I made a start with a small stainless steel wire brush just to remove the bulk of the dirt and the corrosion from the outside of the starter motor body. I then used a little wire brush on a drill just to get into all the nooks and crannies that I couldn't get to by hand with a little wire brush. Once this was mostly done, I used a small file just to clean up the edges of the flange. Then gave it a quick rub down with some sandpaper just to smooth everything out. I removed the 13mm nut for the electrical connection on the solenoid, and then the 3 screws holding the solenoid onto the main body of the starter. So I'm not sure how much you can see in here, but the solenoid body is quite dirty and the outside is quite rusted. That's why I had to knock it off there. The plunger itself, although it is covered in muck, that's kind of stuck to it, which is going to make it difficult to move. There's no actual rust on it, which is really good. So I'm going to give that a clean up, give this a clean up, and then we'll get this apart as well. Slight bit of wear on this, but again, not bad. I've seen a lot worse than that. So that's nice and clean in there now. You can see how shiny it is. So that should slide. Just slides nice in there now. Then on to stripping the main body, being very careful not to strip or break any of the fixing. After giving everything a thorough clean up, I mask up and paint the main body and solenoid. So the first grey primer is a weld-through primer because it has a high zinc content and should help with corrosion. Then a quick coat of filler primer before a couple of coats of satin black. It's all then left to dry overnight. So that is everything cleaned up. So I've removed all the old grease. Everything moves nice and freely now, as it should do. Obviously it needs re-greasing when we put it back together. The body, all the dust has gone out of it now, cleaned it all up, painted the outside, painted the solenoid as well, the plunger's all clean. So everything's ready to reassemble. We just need to put it back together, re-grease everything. So the first thing I want to do is put this gear back in, which basically sits in here. Okay. And just put some grease in here as well. So these are the gears for the starter motor to reduce the gearing on it. So I've given all this a good clean up as well. So this just needs to go back in here now, which is easier said than done with the magnets. So you have to centre it. Okay, that wasn't too bad actually. All goes back together quite nicely. And then the bits and pieces on the back. Now I had to go back and watch the video to remember the order of these. It's all going back together really nicely because everything's so clean. So that washer over first. Needs to pull out slightly. And then the C-clip. And then the cap with the seal. That's the main body put back together. It's just the solenoid itself now. So the solenoid body, again, nice and clean inside. So let's put that spring in there. Which goes in here. And this needs to hook on here. On there. And that's our starter motor rebuilt. The original bolts that were holding the starter motor on are pretty beat up. So that had a washer on it, that didn't. So I've got a bolt that will fit. These aren't new bolts, but they're in much better shape. So that one will do that one. That'll do that one. And then the electric cables held on with an M8. These are M12, I think these were. That's an M8 with a spring washer. And then the other electrical cable, this is an M5 again with a split washer. So that should make everything work spot on. So I've cleaned up all the electrical connectors and I've cleaned up all around here where the starter motor will sit in. So we'll just get that fitted in there now. So this washer on the back is actually too big, or the bolt rather, with the washer. So I have to put a normal bolt in there with a washer as it's pushing against the bell housing. So I got a bolt with a smaller washer, same length, but this bolt's also brand new. So the M5 on here and then the two M8 on there. So I'm not going to put the spring washer on the M8 one because I'm using a lock nut anyway. Okay. And lastly, the little M5 on here. Again, these are all being cleaned up. So hopefully shouldn't have any more problems. Hold this in place because it's loose. So that's all tight. Just need to reconnect the battery and hopefully see if it starts. Okay, so that is the starter motor all sorted out and I'm really pleased with it. It's turned out much better than I expected, especially given the state of it at the start. It looks almost brand new now and it's working really well. So hopefully it'll give years of service without any issues, but time will tell on that. But I'm really happy with it. Now, if you are enjoying the videos, please do remember to hit the like and subscribe button. It really does make a massive difference to the channel and I really do appreciate everybody that sits here and watches the videos. So the next issue then will be the brakes. Now the brakes are stuck on because the car's been stood around for so long. We're talking 10 years plus, and in that time it's got damp, it's got wet, everything's rusted. So the pads are stuck in the calipers and when you push the brakes on, they can't release like they normally would. So what we'll do is we'll get the car up in the air, we'll pull the pads out, clean everything up, and then it'll be a good time to assess what needs changing. We're going to have to change brake pipes. We already know that from when we looked at it before. So we're going to have to drain the system down, so we need to see what needs changing. If we need to change boots, rebuild calipers, etc., now's a good time to have a look, and we're going to order things ahead of time. So the next job, we're going to get it up in the air and take the wheels off, have a look. So looking at the pads themselves, there's plenty of meat left on them. The discs, there's no real lip or anything on them. Obviously they're rusty where it's been stood. In theory that should clean up fine. It's just the actual, they won't turn on their own. I mean, obviously with the weight in the car, it will push it, but I think if we get the pads out, we'll push the piston back, make sure that's free, and then make sure the handbrake isn't binding. So to get the pads out, there's two clips there. This metal clip here. Pull the pins out and pull the pads out, and then we'll go from there. These pads are pretty stuck in there. I think we'll get the pin out. It has moved a bit. So see if that wheel will move now. It's definitely better, but I'm worried about the handbrake, so we'll get the pins out. That's a good start, at least they're not seized in there. Okay, I'm going to clean all these up before we put them back in. I think this caliper is pretty seized up, to be honest. Okay, the piston's starting to move back now. Like I said, there's plenty of life left in the pad itself. It's just a question of whether or not the brakes are seized on. Obviously it helps if you push the right part as well. Okay, so that's the pads out. Now, if the disc turns, we know the handbrake's not stuck on, and it was just the pads. So the handbrake's fine. For now, anyway, just for moving it around. I do need to go through the brakes anyway, but, I mean, this boot here is perished. Chances are the piston is rusted, so that will all need sorting out. So what I'll do now is clean the edges of the pads up, clean all up in here, and push the piston back, and then see if we can move it in and out a couple of times just to free it up, and then hopefully that will work. So I just want to see if I can push this piston back. This is going to be the awkward bit. I went back. Ooh. Went back a bit too fast. So again, we'll put that back in there for a second. So just clean this pin up on the wide wheel, and it's A, it's bent, and B, it's wasted away slightly, so they'll have to be replaced anyway. I'll just put them back in here for a minute, just so the piston doesn't pop out when I put the foot on the brake. Locked on again. It's a lot easier to come out this time. Yeah, that's moving quite nicely now. Put this side back together for now. So with clips like this, I always prefer to have them facing down. That way they can't vibrate out effectively. They can only vibrate in. I mean, they could in theory come out, but... So, that's the one. So just having a look at the driver's side, as I pushed this piston back, or this pad back, it actually came away from the backing, which is not ideal. So we'll get this pad out in a second. See if we can get that one out. Just to get a bit more light on it, see if you can see what I'm seeing. So as I push that pad, it's actually coming away from the pad material, which is stuck in it. There's a gap there now, which is less than ideal. For some reason it's gripping onto this. Alright, I'm gonna have to move the camera a second because it's in the way. Okay, so in my best display of bodgery, I've actually super glued the pad material back onto the backing. Now, obviously, this cannot go anywhere. I mean, the car needs loads of welding. We've got to go through the brake system anyway. We need brake lines, etc. on this, so none of this is staying. but the idea of this video was to make it more mobile, not less mobile. So I've super glued that back on for now. I'm going to put it back in the car. It's only a case of getting this caliper working, making sure the handbrake isn't stuck, which again it isn't. So I'm not worried about the handbrake so much as the pads. So that's in there, and then the same again, we just move the piston back in. Yeah, and it's moving nice and freely. I'm going to give this a bit of a brush out. It helps you to put the pins in the right direction. So that's the back brakes freed off. Now, none of this is obviously staying. That caliper definitely needs a rebuild. This one possibly needs a rebuild, but the lines need changing. Obviously the pads need changing. Again, there's no lip on the discs, so the discs might stay. I might just clean them up. But that's the back, so we'll have a quick look at the fronts. Okay, so driver's side front, you can see the pads are basically brand new, but it's still lock solid. So in theory, just clean these up, it should be fine. As long as that piston isn't seized again, we should be okay. So we'll have a look at this. Now, pretty much the same as the rears by the looks of it. Just pull the R clips out. Yeah, so that piston's going in quite easily, to be honest. So again, these pads brand new. Very, very little wear on these. So we'll just clean up the caliper, put them back in, and check that that piston is coming in and out okay. Okay, so that seems to be working fine. So the temperature has dropped and it's getting really cold again now, but that is the brakes all cleaned up and freed off as best we can. Now, it really could do with a run, but obviously it's nowhere near roadworthy, especially with that pad that's been glued back together. The only reason I've done that is to stop the piston popping out when you put your foot on the brakes. It's no other reason. Certainly can't drive with that like it is. But they are sticking on very slightly and it really needs sorting out. So this passenger side rear, that needs a complete rebuild. The boot's torn, etc. Driver's side rear, I think the boot was torn on that one as well. So that needs a complete kit for those to be rebuilt. The front ones, the driver's side, not in great shape, probably needs a rebuild. So the only one that wasn't too bad was the passenger side front. And given 3 out of 40 doing, we may as well do them all. So down the road, we'll take all the brakes off. We've got to change brake lines, etc. anyway. So it's no great shakes. We just get it all done. And that way it should be right for the MOT. So that'll be down the road. But the next video on the Porsche will probably be the welding. There's so much welding that needs doing. So we need to make a start on it. And at least I can pull it in and out now. So I really do appreciate everybody that stops by to watch the channel. But please remember to hit the like and subscribe button. It makes a massive difference. And I will see you again shortly on the next one.